It makes me wonder. Sometimes I hear these head coaches talk after a game, and I'm like, are you plugged into this team at all? Like, do you just show up and just like walk around the sidelines with a headphone that's not actually plugged in? I mean, he was like, I don't know. Cris was hurt. He probably didn't play. And here's the thing: as a fantasy football analyst, I knew that wasn't true. I knew our own Zach Kruger tweeted, said, no, Todd, Mr. Bowles, your guy Godwin led the team in pass routes. I feel like a lot of head coaches just don't really know what's going on. Ron Rivera, literally no idea.
That was Denny Carter, and this is Denny Carter. Denny Carter has had enough of these NFL coaches having no clue. And Denny joins us, of course, every Friday to talk about the Regression Files, which you could read on NBCSports.com, players who are overproducing or underproducing based on their workload, playing time, and opportunity. But Denny, before we get there, what's going on? What's happening? How we doing?
I'm doing well. You know, I'm glad you guys got that on there because, look, I'm not saying that I know more than an NFL head coach, but I knew when Todd Bowles said, hey, Godwin's banged up. What do you want? I knew, well, hey, your guy Godwin's out there for literally every offensive snap. So what are you not looking at anything? Are you not aware of who's playing and who's not playing? It is really a crazy thing. It makes me think of like Urban Meyer, who didn't know more than like 3 players' names on the Jaguars when he coached them.
Yeah, well, I mean, Urban Meyer is like, literally the worst coach in NFL history.
Yeah, yes.
I would argue that, but that was a fun rant, by the way, just to give a shout out. That was the Roto World Football Show, Denny, that you and RotoPat and Kyle do a couple of times a week. So check that out. Good stuff. That was a really good kind of rant from you, and I agree with it as well. Well, you mentioned Ron Rivera. I literally think Ron Rivera sleeps with his eyes open and isn't awake for those games because he's so stoic and he doesn't react at all to any of these things. And you're just like, no one that's watching those games can think that sticking Emmanuel Forbes out there is a good idea, right. And yet they did that time after time again. No one that watches football, literally, like, again, I would argue that Ron Rivera and all these NFL coaches have probably forgotten more about football than I'll ever know in my dumb life. But even me, with my minuscule, dumb little fantasy brain, I know, hey, Tyreek Hill should probably be double covered. Single coverage on Tyreek Hill is a bad idea. And yet, here's Ron Rivera, who's been an NFL head coach for, multiple decades, saying, like, go. Let's try to single cover 10.
See what happens.
Let's see what happens. Let's F around and find out.
There was that report where Ron Rivera said, hey, why didn't anybody tell me about this Sam Howell kid? Like, what do you mean nobody told you? Don't you know? Shouldn't you know? Have you ever talked to him?
No, it's awful. But he did spend $24 million on Carson Wentz. And he said, and threw him under the bus. And then the very next day said, "Hey, look, I'm the guy that watched the tape and the analytics, and I'm the one who made him my quarterback."
Oh, that is the best.
Anyway, well, I'm derailing the show about Ron Rivera talk. It doesn't matter. Him and Brandon Staley will be on a beach soon, enjoying some Bud Light. Soon rather than later.
Anyways, Denny, Regression Files for this week. You join us every single week for those that haven't seen this segment. How about a negative pick? Who's somebody to have some negative regression?
This is I just want to give some.
Yeah, no, we did that at the top of the show when you weren't listening, which is pretty much how every segment goes.
I was doing my Ron Rivera impression.
Yeah, exactly. The Regression Files on NBCSports.com for the 4th time of this segment, Denny, for anyone that wants to read it. Who is a negative regression candidate in there?
Yeah, look, I don't love to do this because, and that was not a pun, no pun intended, but look, Jordan Love is a negative regression candidate because he's been running really hot and he's been playing really well, and this Packers offense is clicking. But I wrote him down in my column as a negative regression candidate because he's so red hot in the red zone, guys. Here's a stat that I dug up on Tuesday, and it just kind of shocked me. Maybe it'll shock you too. Jordan Love has completed 14 pass attempts inside the 10-yard line this year. 13 have gone for touchdowns. Okay, now that's hot. That's real hot, and that's great. That means he's doing really well in the green zone. It also probably can't last. Losing Christian Watson is another factor here. I don't think that Christian Watson is going to play this week. I'd be surprised if this was not a multiple week injury, but I guess we'll see. Christian Watson easily leading the team in air yards. So those deep throws probably kind of go away, dissipate a little bit. Romeo Doubs is definitely not a guy who can just absorb that role in this offense. And Jaden Reed is an underneath guy. I know that Matthew mentioned Dontavian Wicks. Maybe he's the guy. But I do think that a little bit slower production is coming for Jordan Love.
Yep. Denny, another negative pick. Derrick Henry, who is very game script dependent.
Yeah, this is a nightmare spot for Derrick Henry. I mentioned his splits in the column, and basically he's not finding the field when the Titans fall behind. And they're 13.5-point underdogs against Miami this week. Miami's defense has really stiffened over the past few weeks. Their secondary is solid. Their run defense is even better. I don't see how Derrick Henry is going to get there for fantasy purposes without finding the end zone once, maybe twice. And I don't know if the Titans are going to be able to do that against this Dolphins offense. I think this is more of a kind of an inflated target volume game for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins more than it is for Derrick Henry, who has scored 4 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks, but that's sort of papering over concerning usage.
All right, Denny, let's move over to a positive pick. Obviously, the negative picks, is the tougher part. How about somebody that's due for a little bit in the positive direction?
Yeah, look, Zack Moss is the only game in town with Jonathan Taylor out. And I know that the team has sort of hinted that Taylor may or may not be back. He hasn't practiced this week. That's not happening. So don't worry about that. But don't forsake Zack Moss, okay? Last week, 19 of 19 running back touches in the Indy backfield. He ran basically all of the backfield routes, saw 3 targets. Importantly, he got all of the green zone action, almost scored twice. I know that you can't eat expected fantasy points, okay? I've tried this. They taste like rice cakes, as I said in my column. But Zack Moss was second in the whole league last week, in week 13, in expected fantasy points among running backs. So the Bengals are a much softer matchup than the Titans. I think he gets there this week.
All right, Denny, you can catch Denny for his live fantasy football Q&A right after happy hour at 1 p.m. Eastern time on the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. Be sure to read the entire article, The Regression Files, on NBCSports.com. Denny, thank you as always.
Thanks, Denny.
Fellas.
Good job, Denny. I just want to mention David Njoku was also in his column. I like that call as well. 25% target share for Njoku since week 7. Harrison Bryant caught some of it, just the fact that Flacco's looking at the tight end, especially if Amari Cooper misses. I like Denny's call on Njoku, positive regression coming. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.